1. We will now open the hearing on House Bill 1051, sponsored by Representative Weber. Please begin when you're ready.
Well, I don't know if I can outdo UFO sightings. It also sounds like tourism's been having a big day today. I've been stuck in Jinla, so this is a little different. I'm Representative Emily Weber from District 24, Midtown Downtown area of KC. Chairman Seitz and committee members, thank you so much for letting me present to you today HB 1051. It's to designate the month of May as Asian Pacific Islander Heritage Month Bill. For 2 years, I served on the tourism committee, so it's really good to see some of the familiar faces. So everyone has their own unique story on why this legislation is important to them. As you all are aware by now, I'm adopted from South Korea. My birth name is An Ok-hyun. My name now is Emily Sue Weber. My heritage looks a little different. My dad is German, my mom is Irish, and of course I'm Asian. So growing up, my parents tried their hardest to teach me about my Asian culture. Growing up, I had a hanbok dress that I would wear on certain celebrations. And at one point, my parents did try to speak Korean and then teach us as well. It didn't go very well, but they did try. Growing up in a rural area, I didn't really see a lot of API celebrations or heritage festivals, anything like that. I really didn't see anything up until I moved to Kansas City. And then the Nelson Atkins Museum, every year for the Chinese celebration, Chinese New Year, they would have a huge celebration there, which was free to the public. And they would have a festival for people of all ages. There was crafts kids could do. There was dragon dances. There was music. It's a huge event, and I urge all of you to come visit for the Chinese New Year in District 24 at the Nelson Atkins Museum. I think the tourism committee should do a little bit of tourism. So in 1977, Congress Rep. Frank Horton of New York proclaimed the first 10 days of May as Pacific Asian Heritage Week. Then in 1988, in Congress, it was designated May as Asian Pacific Heritage Month. So, like I said, there really weren't a lot of public events going on. The only one that I could really think of is the one at the Nelson Atkins Museum. The first biggest API event that I participated in was due to some experiences that the community was having. This was a celebration for all of them to be together and celebrate their heritage and their uniqueness. Since then, the API Heritage Month is a celebration. These are big events where they have a lot of different small businesses, local venues. You get to hear different music. You get to hear and see the different dances. Of course, the biggest one is the dragon dance. Everybody loves it. And then the food. There's a lot of food in our culture. And so that's a really big part of it too. So a lot of these events, of course, happen in May because that's when they are. I'm usually very busy in May, not due to we're getting close to end of session, but because it's API Heritage Month and I'm traveling literally across the state to participate in all these events because they're very important to me and to everybody else. So another thing I'd like to point out is on the Kansas City side, because we are so close to the Kansas side, we do get a lot of Kansas people coming across the state line to spend their money in Missouri during these events as well. So it's a huge event across statewide and across the other states. I'd like to go on a few of the stats on API businesses. 10.9% of Missouri's small businesses are owned by minorities. That's 64,261 businesses. 15,446 of those are owned by AAPI. So a lot of those different businesses can be a lot of different items that they're selling. And so it's really big in the culture and it's really big for different areas to have. On top of that, we kind of looked into the different populations on who had the most API percentages in their district. And it looks like Representative Fountain Henderson has the highest in hers, which is 4.476% of API in her district. So good job on that. So right now, I do have some people that would like to share their stories as well on why this legislation is important. But with that, I will take any questions.
Thank you, Representative. Are there any questions from the committee members? Representative Barnes.
To inquire.
Proceed.
Good evening. How are you today?
I'm good. How are you?
Great. Now, you said there was so many percentage in her district. I'm just curious about my district, 28.
Got it. So you are actually a tie with me, Burnett, Barnes, Ely. I think that's it. And we are all tied at 2.117%.
Oh, okay. Great. And so the month of May, I was just curious, and I know you talked about, did you talk about why you wanted May?
So the month of May was chosen because it commemorates the migration of the first immigrants from Japan to the United States on May 7th, 1843.
Okay. That is it. Thank you so much.
You're welcome.
Thank you, Representative. Are there any other questions from the committee? I do have one, and I notice in your bill it says the generations of Asian and Pacific Islander Americans. When we say Pacific Islander, what exactly are we talking about?
So when we talk about Pacific Islander, first, the Asians, like Far East.
Sure.
Okay. So, and then Pacific Islander, we're doing like Native Hawaiian, Samoa, and Pacific Islanders.
Okay. All right.
Are included in that as well.
Excellent, because I know my wife is listening and watching, and she's thinking Hawaii as you present this bill, so I know what I'm going to get when I go back home.
Well, I hope she gets what she wants.
Yeah, she may. No commitments. All right. Any other questions from the committee for this bill sponsor? Okay, seeing none, thank you very much.
Thank you.
Are there any witnesses here to speak in favor of House Bill 1051? If so, please make sure you filled out a witness form and state your name for the record.
Good evening. I already turned in my witness form. My name is Caroline Fan. I am the founder and president of the Missouri Asian American Youth Foundation. I founded it ahead of the 2020 census to ensure that our community had a unified statewide voice. I also served on Governor Parsons' Census Complete Counts Committee, which is a gubernatorial commission. So that was staffed by demographer Matt Hesser. And while I was on the commission, we were actually able to get the state to pay for census ads in Spanish and Chinese in Kansas City and in St. Louis. So one of the things that we found is that actually the Asian American population in Missouri has increased since the 2010 decennial census by 37%. So this is the fastest growing ethnic group in the state of Missouri. Currently, we have roughly 136,000 Asian Americans living in Missouri, including service members and physicians. So I also want to state that I am here testifying in favor of HB 1051. I'm also on the St. Louis County Human Relations Commission. We're in the tourism committee, and I just want to relate a little anecdote about an email that I got from a staff person at the Missouri Department of Economic Development roughly 7-8 years ago. And they were asking me if I knew of any Asian restaurants in the greater St. Louis area that could accommodate, like those chartered coach buses, because there were a lot of Asian tourists who were specifically requesting Asian restaurants when they visited. So this was, some of you may look surprised. I was also surprised. So I went on Google Earth and found, restaurants, a lot of buffets that had enough parking as well to accommodate these chartered coach buses. So this bill has no fiscal note, but due to this anecdote that, again, this information was requested of me by the Missouri Department of Economic Development, I believe that although it has no fiscal note and is budget neutral, may actually even be budget generating. So on that point, I want to bring up that I actually created and put on the first ever Asian Pacific American History Month event in the city of St. Louis at City Hall in 2019. And much like the events in Kansas City, we had folks from the Illinois side coming as well. We recognized many Asian American pioneers in our city and state, including Anna Crossland, who I think is familiar to many of you as the longtime CEO of the International Institute. So I think the time has come to recognize this bill. And I also want to add on to what Representative Weber said. It was actually extended into a month by President H.W. Bush. So this is something that has great recognition by both Democrat and and Republican administrations. Additionally, it is something that is kind of unofficially already been recognized here in the Capitol. Some of you may have seen last year that the Department of Labor under Secretary Anna Hui did a little display in the rotunda about prominent Asian American Missourians and their contributions both in agriculture and the military here, including the farming community, the Hmong community outside of Joplin, Missouri. So speaking of that, we have Anna Hui, who is the first ever Asian American cabinet secretary. We now also have Governor Parson appointed Treasurer Vivek Malik, who will be the first ever statewide constitutional who is Asian American. And then, of course, amongst Representatives Weber and Patterson, we have now in leadership on both sides of the aisle, first ever Asian Americans in leadership in the House. I am aware that there is a recent bill, an effort to recruit more physicians here to Missouri. I am married to a doctor. That is why we moved to Missouri for my husband's job at WashU and at Barnes. 18% of physicians nationally are Asian American, and I think that a bill like this, which again has no cost, may even be revenue generating, would help with attracting more doctors. Thank you.
Thank you. Are there any questions from the committee for this witness? Seeing none, thank you very much. Are there any other witnesses here to speak in favor of House Bill 1051? If so, please come forward, make sure you filled out a witness form, and state your name for the record.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, and thank you, committee. I did fill out a witness form. My name is Katie Kuo Gerson, and I need to put my glasses on. And I spent an early childhood growing up in Southeast Asia and later on the East Coast and in the West Coast of the United States. And I've been a resident of the Kansas City, Missouri city for over 30 years. I live in the 27th District, and Richard Brown is my State House representative. I'm here to speak in favor. As an Asian American woman, I'm passionate about promoting understanding in our society. My father is a first-generation Chinese immigrant, and I have spoken at global conferences about innovative social activism. In the Kansas City community, I've raised millions of dollars for nonprofits and have held leadership positions, including as the first Asian woman of color president of the Junior League of Kansas City, Missouri, president of the board of the University Academy School, and a board director of the United Women's Empowerment. I've also chaired fundraisers such as Jazoo, the Nelson Atkins Museum Gala, and the Kindest Kansas City Banquet. Furthermore, I founded a collaborative conference in Kansas City called C3KC. Asians are a vital part of our state's economy. According to the Asian American Chamber of Commerce of St. Louis, Asian-owned businesses generate over $2 billion in revenue annually for our state. The growth of the Asian and Asian American population is also remarkable, not only in Missouri, but also in the United States. according to the United States Census Bureau's 2020 population estimates, the Asian American population in the Kansas City metro area is approximately 61,000, which represents 2.4% of the total population in the area. This represents a 54% increase in the past decade. Across the U.S., Asians now make up over 7% of the United States population, and that number is expected to quadruple over the next few decades. You might be surprised to know that the majority of people of Asian heritage in the United States today were born in the United States. According to the Pew Research Center, in 2020, approximately 67% of Asian Americans were born in the U.S., while the remaining 33% were foreign-born. This is a significant shift from previous decades when the majority of Asian Americans were foreign-born. Additionally, among the foreign-born Asian American population, a growing share are naturalized U.S. citizens. In 2020, approximately 62% of foreign-born Asian Americans were naturalized citizens, up from 51% in 2000. This means that Asian American community is increasingly diverse in terms of both nativity and citizenship status. Recognizing and celebrating the contributions of the API community in the United States can help combat stereotypes and stigmas that portray APIs as foreign or un-American. The API community has a rich history in the United States, with many APIs having lived in the U.S. for multiple generations. By highlighting the contributions and achievements of APIs, we can show that we are an integral part of American society and that our diverse experiences and cultures contribute to the rich fabric of our nation. Furthermore, establishing API Month can help raise awareness about the discrimination and marginalization that many APIs face. By recognizing these challenges, we can work towards creating a more understanding society that values and respects all individuals, regardless of their background or ethnicity. Overall, establishing API Month is an important step towards promoting understanding. It does not exacerbate the foreigner stigma, but instead helps combat it by recognizing and celebrating the contributions of the API community in the United States. Let's ensure that Missouri sets a strong leadership example by enacting HB 1051. Thank you.
Okay, thank you very much. Are there any questions from the committee for this witness? Okay, seeing none. I'm not a fashion expert, but I want to say I love your jacket.
Thank you.
It's wonderful. I love that color.
It's good for the Kansas City Chiefs.
It is.
Yes.
It is. Appreciate it. Are there any other witnesses to speak in favor of House Bill 1051? Yes, sir. Please fill out your witness form. Make sure you filled it out and state your name for the record.
Hi. Wait. Okay. Hi. I'm Max. I'm a freshman at CHS and also a member of the API community. I'm also a member of the Asian American History Initiative of our youth group, Asian American Civic Scholars. So for me, a second-generation Chinese American living in St. Louis, I don't as often see the recognition and representation that the API community deserve. Many might not know this, but there have actually been Chinese living in St. Louis since the 1850s. We are still seen as foreigners, but the truth is that we've been living here for a long time now, and we have a deep and rich culture in Missouri. If you ever go to a Chinese restaurant in Springfield, Missouri, you will almost certainly run upon the cashew chicken. This dish was made by David Leong, a Chinese immigrant who came to the U.S. and had lived here for half a century. He also fought in the World War II for the U.S. So yet another example. In the 1900s, because of anti-Chinese sentiment, not many cemeteries would allow Chinese deceased to be buried. In St. Louis, the only cemetery that allowed Chinese to be buried there was Valhalla Cemetery. So it's stories like these are just a couple and thousands of stories that make up API heritage in Missouri. If we don't document our stories, then the history will be lost and the heritage will be forgotten. That's why I think this bill is such a great idea, because not only will our will our heritage be remembered and celebrated, but we can also share with our fellow Missourians about this amazing culture. Okay, that's all I have.
Thank you. Are there any questions for this witness? Representative Barnes,
To inquire.
proceed.
Good evening. Just like to welcome you to the Tourism Committee, and thank you for your testimony here this evening. One question is, you say you're a freshman at CHS. What is that?
Yeah, that's Clayton High School.
Clayton High School, and that's in St. Louis?
Yeah.
Okay, great. And just wanted to say I agree with you. I think we should make this May as API month. Yes, and so thanks for coming, and look forward to celebrating with you in the month of May. Thanks.
Appreciate that. Are there any other questions from the committee members? Representative Fountain Henderson,
To inquire,
proceed.
what was the cemetery name?
Valhalla Cemetery.
Valhalla on St. Charles Rock Road.
Yeah.
Okay, all right.
Appreciate that. One comment, since you did bring it up, cashew chicken in Springfield is second to none. When my wife was pregnant with our first child, Daniel, that's what she had to have almost every single night, and we've been there twice. It's on Glenstone by division. We've been there twice to have cashew chicken in the past month, so I'm glad you mentioned Springfield, Missouri. So appreciate it. Thank you. Okay, further witness, come forward. Make sure you state your name and that you have filled out a witness form.
Hello, members of the committee. My name is Hannah Moon, and I submitted the form. I am a junior at Clayton High School in St. Louis and a member of the Asian American Civic Scholars. Openly celebrating heritage is a defining factor in how future generations perceive the diversity of the American identity. Yet throughout my childhood, the celebrations that I saw within my Korean family were not recognizable within my school community. When something is unfamiliar, it becomes subject to alienation. I remember clearly the Tuesday of the second week of first grade. I arrived at my desk to see a drawing of an alien captioned Hannah Moon. The eyes were drawn as slits. I would just like to say I'm not from Piedmont and I'm not an alien. Starting from an alarmingly young age, children uneducated about the diversity of culture in America think it is normal to ridicule fellow Americans for their different cuisine, culture, and tradition. Despite being born in the United States and being a resident of Missouri for the majority of my life, I never felt like an American receiving her education. I felt like an outsider who began refusing to eat her weird lunch at school, never uttering a word out of English out of disgust for her accent, and erasing herself from a land that was supposed to be her home. School becomes a microcosm of our society, where 1 in 6 Asian American adults were victims of hate crimes just this past year. Twice this number, many of whom are American citizens, were told to go back to their country. Perhaps this correlates to the ignorance towards AAPI culture and history. The exclusion of our voices from the American story, beginning as early as our schooling, permeates into the prejudice that we are all the same, an outsider. Therefore, the effort to illuminate AAPI heritage represents a much larger picture of racial inclusivity. AAPI culture is a story of countless individuals who attempted to pursue their right to happiness while maintaining their integrity. It's a story that is inherently American in nature and should be appreciated as so. Recognizing an AAPI Heritage Month will provide proper representation and understanding of our heritage so that we are no longer seen as foreigners, but as American. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Are there any questions for this witness? Seeing none, thank you very much.
Thank you.
Are there any further witnesses in favor of House Bill 1051? If so, please come forward, make sure you filled out a witness form, and state your name for the record.
Thank you. My name is Min Liu. I am a resident and community member from St. Louis County. I'm a faculty member in Southern Illinois, but I've been proud to call St. Louis, Missouri my home since 2007. Thank you for having us. I just wanted to say that these students, I picked them up, an hour before their school ended, which is why we're wearing informal clothes. I am a member of the St. Louis AAPI community. I'm also a volunteer for the Very Asian Foundation, and I'm also the chair of this year's Chinese Culture Day celebration in Missouri Botanical Garden. That's actually a celebration of Chinese culture for more than 20 years, and every year we bring about 18,000 visitors to the Botanical Garden. So I would love to add to that list, 12 people or 13 from the tourism committee. So please consider this to be the official invitation from the chair of this year's committee. But let me share a little bit about my work in the community. So my husband and I, we've been raising our children in St. Louis for, the last 14 years, and we're your typical Asian immigrant family story. We came here for education, for better community, for prosperity of our future generation, and that's exactly what we've been getting here in Missouri. We're realizing our American dream. Another unifying experience of a lot of Asian Americans is why I support this bill. That is, a lot of Asian Americans, particularly the youth, no matter what their skin color, no matter how many generations they've been here, no matter what language they speak at home, no matter their income bracket, they always have this longing to feel included, to feel seen, and to feel represented, which is why all of us drove 2 hours to come and to enthusiastically support this bill. Having worked for 5 years with this AAPI high school group in St. Louis, I can speak from my experience that our high school students, whether their school district is 13, 14% AAPI, like some of these students are, or whether they're one of the very few Asian American students in their school, they need this recognition. They need to know that they are welcome here, their heritage is recognized and celebrated here in Missouri. I also want to articulate the support for this bill because I think it'll bring our state prosperity and future. As already been mentioned, AAPI is the fastest growing group in the U.S. A few years ago, we heard from a SLU studies, St. Louis University study, that St. Louis actually has the recognition of being the ranking third in terms of American cities with the largest foreign-born population. That's a good solution to our region, particularly in cities like St. Louis that's seeing a major population loss problem. We want to make sure that our future physicians, nurses, researchers, scientists, artists feel welcome to come to Missouri to visit, to do business here, and to contribute to the economy here. And I think this bill will accomplish that. Lastly, I sense that this hearing today is such a wonderful experience for all of us because it's so much about the history and legacy. So I wanted to share a little bit about some of the work that students like the ones that you heard before are doing in studying the Asian American history in Missouri. I think, I don't know if you know this, but in addition to great rivers and great peaches and wonderful rifles, Missouri also produces wonderful journalists. The university, I'm not going to tell you the name, but we have a Missouri University that was the first to establish a journalism school. I'm sure you all know that, right? But maybe you don't know this, that university, Mizzou, is also the reason that China now has a journalism industry. Because as soon as the school started, they actually opened the doors to Asian American students. And one brilliant Chinese student from Hawaii came all the way to St. Louis to Missouri to get his journalism education. After his graduation, he actually was personally invited by Dr. Sun Yat-sen, who is the founder of Modern China, to actually do work for his work in China. And he also helped establish the journalism industry in China. And there are many other stories like this. WashU, for instance, has been a major pusher and advocate for diverse student populations as well. Earlier, we heard about the cashew chicken. I just wanted to let you know that I personally had the honor of interview Mr. David Leong during his 95th birthday. We went with the Missouri Historical Society to actually collect his oral history interview, and it was such a wonderful feast. I was having cashew chicken for the first time. I'll be honest, I didn't really expect much, but it was wonderful. But of course, he also had a huge roasted pig, and he had a room full of guests. And in that room, there were probably close to 60 restaurant owners. All of them were telling the story about how David Leong shared, without any cost or charge, his recipe so that all the neighboring restaurants were able to sell this food. I think that's the beauty of a wonderful American story. I'm happy and proud to call him a fellow Missouri Asian American. So I wanted to say I really appreciate Representative Weber for introducing this bill, and I hope that it will have the support of committee members here because it will continuously recognize Asian American heritage in our wonderful state. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Are there any questions for this witness from the committee? Seeing none, thank you very much. Yes, we do have one. Representative Sassman.
Just want to say best testimony tonight.
Oh,
Thank you very much.
was it the cashew chicken?
It was the
story?
emotion.
The
It was-
roasted pig? Oh,
Yeah,
sorry,
I
the
loved
emotion.
it.
Oh, thank you.
Thank you.
Oh, thank you.
Thank you. All right. Are there any further witnesses to speak in favor of House Bill 1051? If so, sir, make sure you filled out your witness form and state your name to the committee.
Thank you. My name is Andrew De La Salas, and I already submitted my form. Good evening, and thank you for your time, Mr. Chairman, and to the Tourism Committee. Like I said, my name is Andrew De La Salas. I live in District 99, and I'm here with the Missouri Asian American Youth Foundation to testify in support of Representative Emily LaBer's HB 1051. This last fall, I walked into the voting booth for the very first time in my life. I've registered voters, recruited dozens of volunteers, and called thousands of voters across the Midwest. But last November was the very first time that I put pen to paper and participated in the democratic process. I'm not the only one. Young people across the country are turning out and showing up and making a difference in the elections that they want to because we care about our future. But what about Asian voters? We're one of the groups that is the largest contingent of undecided voters. Nearly 30% of us don't identify with a certain political party. Instead, we care about the issues. We're committed to seeing more change in healthcare, economy, crime, and education. And you can show your support for the Asian and Asian American community by voicing your support for this bill. Now, a few minutes ago, Representative Weber said that everybody comes here with their own story about why they support this bill. And I'm coming to you today as a student from Washington University in St. Louis, where I was elected the co-president of Asian Multicultural Council, an organization that represents 2,000 students across undergrad and graduate groups and represents 25 other Asian student organizations. Every year, we celebrate our heritage. And this year alone, we've held 7 events for over 650 people, collaborated with other groups like the Association of Black Students, and raised awareness about issues that matter to us, such as mental health, and even created our own magazine, so that way our own voices and art can be heard. And I see my peers giving back to the community that we enter. We're volunteering at hospitals, we're working at startups, and we're tutoring high school students. I urge the committee today, as an Asian student, leader, and voter, to support Representative Weber's bill that would recognize May as Asian Pacific American Heritage Month. Like we heard before, this bill follows in a bipartisan history. For over 40 years, Democrats and Republican administrations have recognized that honoring the accomplishments of Asians and Asian Americans doesn't need a party affiliation, simply a respect for the other people in your community. Honoring May would also honor the legacy of the thousands of Asians and Asian Americans who have served their country. My grandfather, who immigrated from the Philippines in the 1950s, worked in the Veterans Administration as a doctor caring for some of the most vulnerable veterans coming out of the Vietnam War. My great-grandfather was back in 1904 at the St. Louis World Fair, seeing history unravel as the gateway to the West was finally opened. Or just take a look at the Missouri National Guard's Facebook page, which every May congratulates Asian men and women who give their life to their country. Once again, I come to you as a young Asian student leader, voter, and urge the committee to support Representative Weber's bill, HB 1051. Thank you for your time.
Okay, thank you. Are there any questions from the committee for this witness? Seeing none, I want to make a comment that, and I think we have further witnesses, but the young people in particular that we've had here witnessing for this legislation have been outstanding. I said the best I've seen in the past 2 years here on the various committees that I've been on. So you guys have done a really good job, and I appreciate your advocacy for the bill. So thank you. Are there any further witnesses for House Bill 1051? If so, come forward. Please make sure you filled out your witness form and state your name for the record.
Mr. Chairman and a member of the committee, thank you very much for giving us an opportunity to talk. And then I would like to thank Emily Weaver to give us, introduce the bill.
Could you speak a little bit closer to the mic, please?
Okay, all right.
Thank you.
So thank you very much for everybody to give us a chance to speak up. And I would like to thank Emily Weaver to introduce this bill. My name is Atsuki Mori. I live in Warrensburg in Missouri, so I'm only one from rural area, so my voice is a rural Asian's voice. I came to the United States 2001, May 10th, and I became a citizen in 2015. So I have a medical degree in Japan, but right now I work as a registered nurse in a community hospital in Warrensburg. I would like to share my thoughts on this bill today. So Warrensburg is a small college community. So the population is about 20,000, and the Asian population is 2.7%, and Native Hawaiian and Pacific Islander is 0%. So pretty much the resident of Warrensburg, for them, I am the first Asian that they have close contact, other than going to Chinese restaurant. So when I decided to come to the United States, I knew I would have some stereotype by myself. So then I had experienced not to the annoying experience to horrible experience. But I knew I would have this, so I learned to let it go. But when my children, they're much older now, but when they're younger, they'll come home and they'll tell me the story about what happened to them. My daughter didn't want to bring home lunch because his classmate will tell them, "Yo, what's that?" And my youngest son, he came home second grade. When he was second grade, came home and he said, "Mom, I hate Japanese. I hate Japanese name. His name is Japanese name." So classmate teased him. So he hated Japanese before even he'd been to Japan. So seeing those young people losing, faith or confidence in their heritage or identity hurts me the most. But good things happen to me. I work as a nurse with all the different people. And as they know me, they start showing interest in my culture. And I bring the food, they will try. So I learned this stereotyping is based on ignorance, or I should say lack of information of our culture. So when I learned about this API Heritage Month, was a couple years ago, I felt like finally I got permission to feel proud of my heritage while living in the United States. And I felt like I was finally welcome to be part of this country, after living so many years. So my personal experience tell me there's a two reason why this designation of API Heritage Month is important. First, it will provide Missourians the opportunity to learn about other cultures. So we live in a rural area. it's really hard for rural Missourian to go to Kansas City or go to the St. Louis to experience those culture. So if we have API Heritage Month, schools, grade school, kindergarten will more likely to participate in activity. I'm also the member of Diversity and Inclusion Commission in the Warrensburg. So we identify this lack of exposure to culture is the base of this stereotyping. So we try to encourage people to participate in stuff, but it's really hard to get people to participate. So that's my thought about having an API. And so the United States is a beautiful country because we are different cultures, many cultures. Tradition is come together, creating one big, huge, beautiful mosaic. So I would like that to happen in Missouri. And the second, well, already people, like young people, everybody talk about it, but celebrating API Heritage Month will give us a opportunity to be confident, to build healthy identity as a American and Asian or Pacific Islanders. And so visibly, publicly knowing that our culture is celebrating officially by state will more promote feeling of belongingness of this state and will increase the people's motivation to participate in a more positive activity, and then that's going to be great. It's beneficial to Missouri's future. So, thank you very much.
Thank you. Are there any questions from the committee for this witness? Seeing none, I would, Representative Barnes, go ahead. You good? Okay. I'd like to say I'm picking out words and phrases from numerous bills tonight, and I think a beautiful mosaic was a wonderful way of putting the celebration of this culture within the framework of the United States culture, so I appreciate that. Thank you. Are there any further witnesses that are wanting to speak in favor of House Bill 1051? Seeing none, are there any witnesses that would speak in opposition to House Bill 1051? Seeing none, is there anyone here that would like to speak for informational purposes only? Seeing none, that concludes the hearing on House Bill 1051.